A cold wind rushed through the crowded street as the camera opened on a simple but powerful moment, a homeless woman holding out a small food box with trembling hands. People walked past without noticing her, but she looked straight at the narrator, someone she had never met, and whispered, "Please, take it." "You need it more than I do," the narrator froze. He hadn't eaten all day, his wallet was missing, and he felt completely defeated, yet the last thing he expected was kindness from someone who clearly had so little. The scene slowed, her worn-out eyes filled the frame, and a single question echoed in his mind: why would she give this to me? As the narrator accepted the meal. Unaware of the storm of emotions ahead, the screen faded to black with his voice saying, "I didn't know her name then, but what she told me afterward broke me completely." The story began. A few hours earlier, on a day that felt cursed from the start. The narrator described waking up late, rushing to work, and realizing halfway through the day that his wallet was gone, maybe dropped on the bus, maybe stolen. Whatever happened, he was stranded in the city with no money, no ride, and no way to get food. The weather shifted from warm to bitter cold, and the city seemed unusually loud, filled with people rushing in every direction but never really seeing each other. As he stood outside a small food stall, the smell of freshly cooked rice and curry hit him hard. His stomach growled, reminding him that he hadn't eaten in almost 24 hours. He searched his pockets again hopelessly and felt frustration, shame, and hunger all blend together. While he debated walking away, trying to ignore the hunger, he felt someone watching him. He turned slightly and noticed an old homeless woman sitting by the wall, wrapped in a thin blanket. She didn't ask for money. She didn't beg. She just watched him with a soft, almost motherly concern. Before he could look away, she slowly opened a small container, clearly her only meal, and gently pushed it toward him. He refused at first, shaking his head, but she insisted with a smile that carried both warmth and pain. "I want you to eat," she said, her voice steady despite her fragile appearance. That single act of kindness from someone who had nothing left stunned him. He finally sat next to her, holding the warm box of food, unsure whether to eat or cry. Something about her gentle insistence, the calmness in her voice, and the sadness behind her smile made him realize there was much more to this woman than anyone passing by could ever guess. As he looked at her and thanked her quietly, she simply replied, "You looked hungry, and I know what that feels like." At that moment, he felt an urge to understand her, to know why she chose to help a stranger despite her own struggle. He didn't know it then, but the truth she was about to reveal in the next few minutes would shake him, break him, and eventually touch everyone who heard her story. The narrator sat on the cold pavement with the warm food box in his hands. Unable to process how a homeless woman someone society often walked past without a second glance had just offered him her only beef. The steam drifted upward, carrying a simple aroma of rice and lentils, comforting in a way he hadn't felt in days. He glanced at the woman beside him. Her blanket was thin, torn at the edges, and her hands were red from the cold. She had deep wrinkles, not just from age, but from the long years of hardship that had carved themselves into her skin. People hurried around them, some curious, some indifferent, others actively avoiding eye contact as if kindness was something contagious they didn't want to catch. The city was always like that, rushed, blind, and impatient. But for the first time that day, the narrator felt the noise fading. The only thing that mattered was the quiet, gentle woman sitting next to him. He took a small bite, embarrassed by how hungry he was. He hadn't tasted anything so warm, so filling, in what felt like forever. He kept thanking her, stumbling over his words, but she shook her head slowly. You looked hungry, she repeated softly, as if those 3 words explained everything. But they didn't. Not even close. He studied her face. Her eyes seemed too kind for someone who had suffered so much. "Why give it to me?" he finally asked, voice trembling. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she watched the passing crowd, as if scanning faces she once knew. She pulled her blanket tighter, took a deep breath, and finally spoke. "I know what it feels like to be forgotten," she said quietly. "And I know what hunger does to a person. Not just to their stomach, but to their heart." There was pain behind her words, pain so deep that it didn't need explaining. The narrator felt a lump forming in his throat. He wanted to ask her more, but something told him not to push. So he simply nodded and continued eating, sharing the silence with her. After a long pause, she leaned back against the wall and said, "People think we become invisible when we lose everything. They think we're weak or worthless. But sometimes all it takes is losing one thing, one person, one moment, and your whole life changes." Her voice cracked at the last word. The narrator looked at her with new eyes. This was no ordinary homeless woman. She wasn't here because of laziness or carelessness. She had a story, one heavy enough to weigh down her entire body, yet she carried it with quiet grace. She suddenly wiped her eyes and forced a small smile. "Eat more," she insisted. "It'll make you feel better." He knew she needed the food more than he did, yet she watched him like a mother making sure her child was okay. That maternal warmth both comforted him and broke him at the same time. He finally made a decision. "Let me buy you something," he said, forgetting he had no money. Then he remembered. His wallet useless. He apologized, frustrated with himself, but she just laughed softly. "I didn't give you food so you'd return anything. I gave it because you needed it." The narrator swallowed hard. This woman didn't pity him. She understood him, and somehow that made everything feel heavier. He looked at her again, really looked, and realized this meeting wasn't random. She had been watching the world for years, and today she had chosen him. But he didn't yet know why. And the truth behind her simple act of kindness was about to hit with the force of a storm. They sat together under the dull afternoon sky as the city buzzed with life around them. The cold pavement, the rushing traffic, the distant sirens, none of it reached them anymore. The narrator felt an unexplained pull toward this woman, something urging him to understand her story. So he asked gently, "How long have you been out here?" She sighed. Her breath visible in the cold air, "Longer than I want to remember." Her voice grew distant, almost fragile. She pulled her blanket tighter, not to protect herself from the cold, but as though bracing for the memories she was about to unearth. "I had a family once," she said, staring at the sidewalk, "a home. A daughter." Those last 2 words carried more heartbreak than any scream ever could. She paused again, and the narrator felt his heartbeat slow. He didn't speak, afraid to interrupt whatever she was gathering the strength to say. "She was 8, the woman whispered, the brightest smile, the loudest laugh. She loved cooking with me, always wanted to mix the spices. Even though she kept sneezing, she chuckled softly, but her eyes began to glossy with tears. I used to pack her lunch every morning, and she'd hug me like she was hugging the whole world." The narrator pictured it, this gentle woman, once a loving mother, now sitting on the street clutching a blanket instead of her child. "What happened?" he asked quietly. The woman closed her eyes. "One night, there was a fire in our apartment building. I wasn't home. I was working the night shift at a diner." Her voice cracked. "They told me they tried to save her, but the smoke," she didn't need to finish. The narrator's throat tightened. The city noise faded completely, replaced by the weight of her grief. I lost everything that night, she continued. My daughter, my husband couldn't bear it. He fell into addiction. We fought. He blamed me for being at work. I blamed myself too. She held her chest as if trying to steady her heart. He left. And I just couldn't keep up anymore. I couldn't breathe inside that house. Every corner reminded me of her. The narrator listened, frozen. So I walked out one day, she said, with nothing but her photo in my pocket. And I never went back. Her tears slipped quietly down her face, not dramatic, not desperate, just endlessly sad. The narrator placed the empty food box beside him, suddenly understanding why she gave him her meal. Hunger wasn't just physical to her. It was emotional. Spiritual. She knew what it felt like to starve not for food, but for kindness, for understanding, for someone who could look at her without judgment. I'm so sorry, he murmured. She nodded gently. People pity me, or they fear me. But you looked lost, not in the way people lose their way on a street. You looked lost in here. She touched her chest. Her perceptiveness startled him. No one had ever read him so quickly. And I remembered my daughter, she whispered. Every time she saw someone hurting, she wanted to help. Even if she had nothing. She paused, tears falling silently. So when I saw you, I felt like she was telling me to share. The narrator felt tears sting his eyes. Her sacrifice, her gesture, it wasn't random. It wasn't small. It was a mother keeping her daughter's kindness alive. The truth was already heartbreaking. But there was more, much more. The narrator sat stunned, feeling the weight of everything she had just shared. Her story haunted him. He looked at her differently now, not as a homeless woman, but as a mother carrying memories too heavy for a single heart. He finally asked the question burning in his mind. But why me? Out of all the people here, why did you offer your meal to me? She took a deep breath and looked at him with soft, tired eyes that had seen too much loss. Because, she said, you reminded me of someone. He blinked, confused. She smiled sadly. My brother. She folded her hands in her lap, staring at her fingers as if reading stories written in the wrinkles. He was older than me. Always took care of me. Always made sure I ate before he did. He wasn't perfect, but he was good. Really good. She swallowed hard. He left home at 19, trying to escape the same poverty that eventually swallowed me. The narrator noticed her voice trembling again. I didn't know where he went. Didn't know if he was alive or dead. We never had phones, no way to stay connected. She rubbed her arms as if soothing an old ache. But one thing about him never changed. She looked directly at the narrator. He had the same eyes you have right now. The same look of being hurt, but still trying to hold yourself together. The narrator felt a chill run down his spine. When you stood there, looking at the food stall, hungry but refusing to beg, it reminded me of him. She offered a weak smile. He used to do the same. Always too proud to ask for help, even when he needed it most. She reached into the pocket of her blanket and took out a tiny folded piece of paper. He gave me this before he left. She unfolded it carefully. It was an old note, edges worn, handwriting faded. It read, never ignore someone who needs help. You never know when it'll be you. The narrator stared at the note, feeling the words pierce straight into him. I saw that in you, she said. The same silent struggle. The same quiet desperation. Her lips trembled. And I thought, if someone had helped him when he needed it, maybe he would have come back home. Her voice broke. I couldn't help him then. But I could help you now. The narrator felt tears slip down his face before he even realized he was crying. She gently touched his shoulder. We can't save everyone. But we can save moments. And today, your moment was mine to save. He felt something shift inside him, a mix of gratitude, guilt, and a deep, painful understanding. But the woman wasn't done speaking. There's another reason, she whispered. A bigger one. He looked at her, eyes red. She inhaled shakily. When I saw you standing there, you looked like someone who hadn't been seen in a long time. She paused. And I know what it feels like to disappear, even while people walk right past you. Her words hit him like a punch. She continued, I didn't give you food because you were hungry. I gave it because you looked like you needed someone to care. The narrator wiped his tears, but they kept coming. He wanted to hug her. Tell her she mattered. Tell her she wasn't invisible. But before he could speak, she whispered, You don't know this yet, but the moment you sat down with me, you saved me too. The narrator felt his breath hitch. Saved you? He asked. How? She smiled softly. Because today, before I saw you, I was ready to give up. The narrator felt the world stop. She continued slowly, voice trembling. This morning I woke up colder than usual. My blanket was soaked from the night rain. My bones hurt. My chest felt tight. She rubbed her arms again, shivering at the memory. And I thought, maybe today is the day I stop trying. He stared at her, horrified. I was tired, she whispered. Tired of being ignored. Tired of hurting. Tired of fighting a battle that wasn't ending. She looked him in the eyes. But then I saw you, her eyes softened. You looked so lost, and something inside me woke up. Something I thought I'd buried with my daughter. She smiled through her tears. I felt needed again. Like I still had purpose. The narrator couldn't hold back anymore. He covered his face as tears streamed down. This woman, broken, forgotten by the world, had found strength in helping him. I didn't save you, he managed to say. You saved me, she shook her head gently. We saved each other. They sat there, two strangers bound by pain, kindness, and fate. The sky began to darken as streetlights flickered on. People kept walking, unaware that something life-changing was happening right beside them. The narrator finally said, Let me stay with you a while. At least until you eat something, she smiled. I'd like that. He stood and bought food with the help of a passerby, explaining he'd lost his wallet and needed one meal. The stranger agreed surprisingly easily, maybe touched by the sight of the two sitting together. When he returned with warm soup and bread, the woman's eyes filled with gratitude so deep it almost hurt to see. I haven't had soup in weeks, she whispered. They ate together, sharing small stories, him about his job, his struggles, his constant pressure to survive, her about the dreams she once had, the family she lost, and the memories that kept her going. When the meal was done, she looked at him with a serene expression. Can I tell you something? She asked. Anything. She placed her hand gently over his. You're a good person. Life has bruised you, but it hasn't broken you. Her eyes glistened. Don't give up. Not everyone gets a second chance. But you do. And you will do something beautiful with it. The narrator felt something inside him shift again. Hope, maybe. Or belief. Something he hadn't felt in a long time. He hugged her. A long, quiet hug. She hesitated at first, then sank into it like she hadn't been held in years. When they finally pulled apart, she whispered, Thank you for seeing me. He smiled through tears. Thank you for reminding me what kindness looks like." As he walked away later that evening, he realized something life-changing. The smallest acts, from the most unexpected people, often carry the deepest power. The woman didn't just give him food. She gave him perspective. She gave him connection. She gave him a moment he would remember for the rest of his life. And somewhere behind him, under a flickering street light, a homeless woman sat with a soft smile on her face, finally feeling seen, finally feeling human again. As the narrator walked away, he kept looking back, hoping to catch one more glimpse of the woman who had changed him in ways she would never fully understand. She sat beneath the dim street light, her silhouette small but her impact enormous, far greater than anyone passing by could ever guess. He wondered how many others had crossed paths with her without realizing they had walked past a miracle in disguise. Every step he took felt heavier, but not from sadness, rather from the weight of a truth he could no longer ignore. Sometimes the people with the least give the most. Sometimes the ones society brushes aside carry the deepest wells of love. And sometimes the person you think you are saving is actually saving you. As he reached the corner, he paused, heart aching with a mixture of gratitude and guilt. He whispered a silent promise to himself that he would not forget her, and that he would not waste the second chance she unknowingly gave him. Because that moment on the pavement wasn't just about food. It wasn't just about kindness. It was about humanity, raw, fragile, and beautiful. He took one last look at her, sitting quietly with her blanket wrapped around her shoulders. And for the first time since he met her, he didn't see a homeless woman. He saw a mother, a sister. A human being with a heart big enough to give even when she had nothing left. And as he turned away, he carried her words with him, words that would echo through every decision he made from that day forward. We saved each other. If someone watching this feels lost, unseen, unheard, remember this: kindness is never a small thing. And you matter more than you think. If this story touched your heart, don't go without giving it life beyond this moment. Like the video, share it, and subscribe for more stories that remind us of the humanity we often forget. Because somewhere out there, someone just like her and someone just like you is waiting for a moment of kindness that could change everything.